Recording?
Yep, I think so.
Good morning.
Welcome to Overthink This podcast. My name is Kyle.
My name is Maci, and this is the 5th time we've recorded this intro.
Yes, sorry. We are having some noise issues this morning, but that's okay. So we're going to do things a little bit different this week and for the foreseeable future. We're first of all going to forego the video portion just because we want to make sure that we're focusing on quality instead of spreading it out so much over so many channels. And we're also going to move to one story an episode just so that we can do a bit more of a deep dive in on that story and have a little bit more of a discussion around it for each episode. So this week we're
going to talk about Bozeman's Got, which in English means Bushman's Hole. From what language? I don't know.
Bozeman's Got. How's it spelled?
Boesmansgat.
That sounds like English.
No, but it's not English.
I know.
English is Bushman's Hole.
All right.
Anyway.
Well, let's do it.
All right. Bushman's Hole is a deep submerged freshwater cave in the northern Cape province of South Africa, and it's the third deepest freshwater cave in the world.
How deep?
So the deepest depth it's been dived to was 927 feet. So about that.
Yeah, because usually when people cave dive, they don't really know how far it goes. It's usually unknown, right?
I think that they probably send probes down before. That would be my guess. If I was about to do a deep underwater cave dive and I have no idea what's down there, it seems smart that you would do that first.
Well, I'm not going to do a deep water cave dive. That's terrifying.
Absolutely not. But when you have a cavern that goes really deep filled with water, of course you have the maniacs who are just like, let me see what's down there. Terrifying.
Best to send a probe first or some sort of robot down.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
I have never scuba dived, but
I have once.
Scuba diving mixed with cave exploring is just dangerous.
Yeah. Scuba diving was good enough for me.
Yeah, so
that's about as claustrophobic as I want to feel.
Cave diving is a very dangerous sport. Okay, so Nuno Gomes was the one who dove to that deepest depth of 927 feet in 1996. The cave is located in altitude over 15,000 meters above sea level, which is 4,921 feet, and that makes the diving more challenging because...
So it's in a mountain cave. Oh, weird.
Yeah, it's in altitude, which is significant because this affects the decompression requirements due to lower atmospheric pressure and higher risk of decompression sickness. So you have the third deepest cave in the world on top of it being in altitude, which just adds to the risk.
Yeah, you're confusing your body of all sorts of different pressures and whatnot. You're in a low pressure.
Especially if you haven't acclimated to the altitude first. Also, the tank gas requirements are going to be different in altitude than they would be at sea level. So there's a lot of things you have to take into account.
Yeah.
And just for a reference of how deep this cave actually is and how deep he went, industry standard for a recreational scuba diving depth limit is 130 feet. So if you're a recreational diver, you wouldn't go anywhere below 130 feet. You probably wouldn't even get close to that because a deep dive is considered 60 feet or more than 60 feet.
Yeah. When I went scuba diving, it was 60 feet max.
Yeah. So
I think I could look up and see the surface basically.
Oh, yeah. Student divers will stay at around 30 to 60 feet if you're learning.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly.
Which I still have never scuba dived, so I'm not an expert on this, okay? So obviously we have a deep cave that is filled with water that people have explored, which has led to a few deaths. In 1993, Eben Laden died after blacking out at 197 feet. In 1994, Dion Dreyer died during ascent at a depth of 164 feet. And on January 8th, 2005, David Shaw died while attempting to recover Dreyer's body, which is what we're going to talk about. Is that like recovery process?
Yeah, okay.
And what happened to Dion?
Yeah. I feel like from what I know from cave diving and when people do die, like it's kind of like an Everest thing where they're just like, it's best to just leave the person there. Because rescuing people is, as I'm guessing, what we're going to get into, it's very dangerous.
In this case, yes, and we will talk about that. The whole like, should we leave them or should we?
Okay.
Take them. Okay. All right. So, Dion Dreyer was born August 7th in 1974 in South Africa. He was a recreational scuba diver who ended up dying in Bushman's Hole in South Africa. Dion had experienced about 200 dives when he was invited to go dive at Bushman's Hole. And he was invited to go with Nuno Gomes and a team. So this guy is like, has gone to the deepest part of the cave and has explored it. And they're like setting up for this other crazy dive. And so Dion is just like ecstatic that he gets to be part of this dive. Mm-hmm. They planned to dive to a depth of 492 feet, and Dion was thrilled and said, quote, if he had a choice of how to go out in life, he'd like to go out diving. So this was like his passion.
Yeah. Well, that's really deep.
492 feet. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
and that's only like half of the cave's depth.
Yeah.
But that's crazy. On December 17th, 1994, Dion was participating in a practice dive while helping the team assembled by Nuno Gomes. Dreyer was lost on ascent around 160 feet from the surface. They believe that he probably lost consciousness either because of oxygen toxicity or hypercapnia induced by the high work rate of breathing at depth. 2 weeks after his death, his father Theo hired a small remote-operated submarine. So here we go with the probe. We got a submarine, which found Dreyer's dive helmet on the sea note floor, but they did not find his body. So he sunk to the bottom, and they couldn't find his body anywhere. But they just know that he's like in the bottom of the cavern.
But they found his helmet?
Yeah, they found his helmet.
His head wasn't in it?
Nope.
Okay.
Your head doesn't just fall off.
Well, we don't know. That's pretty deep.
Let's talk about what may have caused his death, because he was only around 160 feet from the surface when he just kind of like died.
Yeah, because for a pro like that, that's not very...
Well,
I mean, it's deep, but it's not where they were trying to go, which isn't even... They're not even really close to where
they were coming back up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
and it was a practice dive, so they didn't
go all
the way to the depth they were planning to go to in the real dive. So they concluded that it probably was either oxygen toxicity or hypercapnia. Oxygen toxicity is a condition resulting in the harmful effects of breathing molecular oxygen at increased partial pressures. So your body is not used to just getting straight oxygen through a tank. So if you overfill your tank with too much, it's pretty damaging to your body. So everything in moderation. Like, yes, we survive off oxygen, but
not 100% pure oxygen.
No, and I don't think that's not the mix that they put in tanks, but if it's an elevated amount of oxygen that you're not used to, it can really cause damaging effects. It can cause hyperoxia, which is increased oxygen in the body tissues, which in severe cases causes cell damage and death. And effects are seen mostly in the lungs and eyes, which is kind of interesting.
The eyes. Weird.
Obviously the lungs because you're breathing it straight in, but the eyes...
Well, the eyes, are lots of pressure behind those.
Oxygen toxicity is seen more when you breathe higher concentrations of oxygen at shallower depths, so that's kind of interesting. But he was also only at 160 feet, which is still very deep, but in comparison to 500 feet.
Yeah, because once you get closer to the surface, that's when pressure starts to really come back, and that's when your body starts to react, right? Like when your
I'm
lungs and
assuming-
your pressure starts to...
I'm assuming I did not deep dive into this specific
Or, well, wait, no, the
condition.
pressure doesn't come back. It's the
It
opposite.
decreases,
Yeah.
But I didn't really go super deep into
why
into
and
these
how.
things. The second option is hypercapnia, which is carbon dioxide retention or high levels of carbon dioxide in the blood. So literally the opposite. When which is obviously carbon dioxide is a waste product.
Mm-hmm.
So breathing it in
It's not good.
Carbon dioxide accumulates and causes hypoventilation, which is a decrease in breathing,
Mm-hmm.
and a reduction of alveolar ventilation from the small sacs of the lungs where gas exchange takes place. So those little like alveoli are those little teeny tiny spaces inside your lungs that air goes into. Sounds like ravioli. So this can happen during diving when the carbon dioxide scrubber and the diver's rebreather fails to remove sufficient carbon dioxide. So it could just be equipment malfunction.
Sure.
Especially when the diver is over-exercising and producing an excessive amount. It can also happen when a diver is skip breathing, which is when they skip a breath to save oxygen. So not saying that these are all the things that he was doing, but
Yeah, these are just all things that can happen.
it can happen. And
Got it.
can be pretty much out of your control no matter how experienced you are. Okay, so he dies at a depth of 160 feet, sinks to the bottom, and we can't find his body, pretty much. 10 years after his death, in October of 2004, renowned cave diver David Shaw discovers Dreyer's body in the cave at a depth of 892 feet, while becoming the only person to have dove 889 feet with a rebreather apparatus, which enables divers to recycle air. So he's trying to like do this crazy dive where he's using a rebreather and going down to an ungodly depth, and this is like a huge deal. But that feat is overshadowed by him discovering Dreyer's body 10 years after he dies.
He found the body way down there.
By accident, like unintentionally, but I think also they know that he's down there.
Well, that's a bummer to go through that whole thing, and then the only thing to come out of it is that's where the other diver is. And it's like, hold on.
Yeah.
I just dove really far.
But it actually, this like discovery that he made inspires him to plan and execute a rescue mission. So, is it a good thing?
Yes.
Yes, until
we get into the meat of the story.
So he discovers his body still wearing his wetsuit and all of his dive gear, but the oxygen tanks are stuck in the mud. So obviously he's down there. He can't just like grab it and bring it up. That's not how these things work.
Yeah.
So they have to put in a plan to recover the body. Shaw informs and discusses this plan with Dreyer's father, Theo. So now his parents know that their son has been located. So
okay,
maybe it's a little bit of closure for them. I don't know.
No, of course it is. You definitely want the body to be found and to give it a proper burial.
Yeah, I assume most people would like that. I don't know. If I die, just put me in the trash pile outside.
Burn me up.
Just take me out with the rest of the trash. The trash that I am.
You're not trash.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Plan and team. A team of 8 experienced technical divers and 2 police divers are like collected together to start with the whole execution process. They are going to pass the body up to a surface. So everybody, there's like 11 divers total because there's 8 in the 2, and then including Shaw, we have 11 divers. They're all going to be like posted at different depths, and they're just going to pass the body like up the chain kind of.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because of the...
Now, I'm going to bring something up.
Mm-hmm.
Can't we just drive a drone or something down there and it grabs onto a hook in his body and you just pull him up? Why do we have to send more people?
I'm assuming that if that was the case, that's probably what they would have done.
Okay.
But for some reason, that's
not what they did.
Wasn't what they did.
Okay.
And I don't really think they would have risked like 11 people's lives to bring up a body when they had that other option.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It just seems like maybe they jumped the gun in the plan and didn't think, but again, I don't know.
Yeah, okay. I don't know. Obviously, they're all like very experienced people who aren't just jumping into this thinking, like they know how dangerous it is and they discuss it. Yeah. So, so they're all posted up like in this big chain, because if for diving to that depth of 880 feet, 89 feet, I think that's where his body is, 889 feet, the decompression time to get back up takes about 8 hours. So that's why they have people posted up, because obviously one person's not just gonna like drag it all the way up the line. Yeah,
because that would be terribly dangerous.
Yeah, they're like passing it off to each other. Execution. On January 8th, 2005, Shaw makes the descent at 6:15 a.m. in order to bring up Dreyer's body. He descends to 889 feet in 10 minutes. So you can get down there pretty quick. It's the coming back up.
Yeah, you
that
get
is the problem.
You're going to get the bends if you rush it, going back up.
That's what it's called, the bends?
Yeah.
I thought it was called the bubbles or something.
Well, that's technically what happens is it's like your blood bubbles up.
With nitrogen, yeah.
Yeah, but it's in the professional diving world, it's called the bends.
The bends.
Yeah.
Don't get the bends.
The Radiohead album.
Is that why they named it that?
I don't know why I don't know if that's why they named it that, but it's the same thing.
I don't think Tom York is an avid scuba diver.
You never know. I don't
know. But that's scary that it only takes 10 minutes to get down to that depth, and once you're down there, it's going to take you 8 hours to get back up.
It's a long time in the water.
Yeah, it's a long time. And you have no other option. If you swim up, you're
dead.
Yeah, don't do that. Okay, so he makes his descent at 6:15 a.m. and he's followed by technical diver Don Shirley at 6:28 a.m., who expects the body at this point to be freed and ascending. By the time Don Shirley like comes down, he's the second in the line, so he's like the second deepest.
Oh, okay.
So when he gets down there after,
he's expecting the thing to like
be
already
on its way up,
so that he doesn't have to be down there waiting forever.
Yeah.
Got it.
Like how they planned out who's going down at what time.
Yeah.
There was no indication through bubbles that Shaw was ascending, but he was not waving his lights in distress. So they have like ways to signal to each other. Yeah. So it probably was just taking a little more time than they had planned, but there was no distress signal. So Shirley continues down to 820 feet to look for David Shaw, but then the computers controlling his breathing equipment cracked and imploded. That's in quotes. So he has to return to the surface to save his own life because...
So if his cracked and imploded, I wonder if the first diver had the same thing and just decided to keep going.
I don't think so because, well, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
But, yeah, it is a little bit surprising that happened to his computers because if you're planning a dive at a depth, you would have equipment that should withstand that pressure.
And yeah, unless it was faulty in some way, yeah.
But
because they had already done that depth too, so they know what to use.
Exactly. But either way, he has to return. So he has to start going back up.
Gotcha. The 7-hour, 8-hour ascent
with a cracked and imploded computer for your breathing apparatus.
Yeah, you're just going to go out. You're just going to guess, basically.
I don't know how that works.
Well, if you have no measurements telling you what you're at.
He has a watch.
Yeah. A shark. Do you think he has a shark watch?
They have a line, like a not a fishing line, but like a nylon rope, and it's marked like up and down.
Yeah.
That's
how they know.
The depth points. Yeah. So they know. Okay, so we're 90 minutes into the dive now, and the body bag was supposed to have surfaced because they were planning on doing it in 80 minutes. From David Shaw going down to the body coming all the way to the surface through like the chain of people was only supposed to take 80 minutes. So we're 90 minutes in and the body bag has not surfaced yet. Support diver Peter Herbst had not found Shirley at the 80-meter mark, so he drops down to 40 meters and sees a message written on a slate saying, "Dave's not coming back."
Eek.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
So you mentioned... Yeah, that's sad. So he knows something happened.
Oh, yeah. It's super ominous, too, because the
Yikes.
communication underwater, there really is none, so they're just...
He's just like...
Nobody really knows what's going on between each other, and...
Yeah, but they know it's not good.
They know it's not good because we're past the time mark, and Dave's not coming back. And then he's still underwater, and he still has to take his time to get to the surface, so the people up top don't know.
Yeah.
And it's just a waiting game.
You mentioned a body bag. Now, just playing devil's advocate here. What if... So they took the body, put it in a bag, and then that's how they were going to bring it up, right? Mm-hmm. Why didn't they just, like, blast that bag with full of air and have it just float up so that one person needs to go down?
I don't know how you would do that.
You have just like like your same as your tank you're wearing. Just blow it in and the body will just float to the top while that one guy just makes his way back up.
Again, like if
am I a dive recovery genius?
No. If this was something that was possible to just inflate a bag with air underwater at 900 feet, I'm pretty sure they would have done that. Well, that doesn't sound like a possibility.
I'm just throwing shit at the wall.
We'll talk about the body bag too.
Okay.
So a message is passed. Eventually, like, word gets out that it's not going well. Dave's not coming back, which we can conclude Dave is dead at this point. David, sorry. A message is passed to David Shaw's wife, who asks that her husband's body not be retrieved. And that is also something that
that's weird.
It's something that they talked about before they did the dive. Like, this whole team in private had a discussion saying that if something happens, nobody should risk their lives for them if they die, and nobody should attempt to recover the bodies.
Yeah. Yeah, so well, isn't that like a diver's code? It's so dangerous to recover these bodies at these depths that you're just putting more and more and more and more people in danger as the bodies pile up.
Mm-hmm. And that's what they're saying. Like, if we die, just leave it. Just leave it.
Yeah.
And so his wife even says that.
Yeah.
Don't try and get him because
it's just gonna put more people in danger.
Yeah. Which that's why really I'm kind sad.
Of, since these guys were like avid divers, that's why I'm kind of like sort of shocked that they even attempted to get the first guy. Like, no, to just like, you saw him, but don't, you know the dangers of going back. Just don't do it. Yeah.
I don't know.
I think so this is where I keep coming in with like these theories of like other ways to do it. I feel like they were going in with some sort of bravado of like, well, we got this. We'll do the dive and do this, the rescue and blah, 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 when there was all these other options.
But that's the thing is like, I wouldn't say that there was all these other options, because if there was all these other options that didn't include like having 11 people risk their lives to dive, I don't think they would have done that.
I feel like they were trying to prove something. That's what I'm saying. Like, we can rescue bodies. This is how we'll do it with people.
I'm not going to jump to conclusions about their thought process, but I would say that David, after discovering the body, it was probably felt that like, I have to do this for them and for their family. I don't think it was more like so I can look good. I think it was just like so I can return this son to his parents.
I'm not saying it's for him to look good. That's not. I'm saying it's for like, look what we did. Like, we got, like, it's not like for him, not his glory. It's like, look, we can rescue people. We rescued this guy for his family. Blah, blah, blah.
I don't know, because he's not a rescue diver. He's just a technical diver. So this isn't even like his forte.
Even more reason to not do it.
We get rescue divers on board, but
Yeah, okay.
he is a very prolific diver, though. Like, this guy's experienced.
No, I believe it.
Okay,
I mean,
yeah, this isn't just like,
I'm not.
oh, I
That's not
just
what I'm
started.
saying. I'm not saying he's like some noob that's getting down. Like, clearly, if he's going that deep, or even wants to go that deep, you must know what you're doing. That's
and
not
he
what I'm
does,
saying.
but like we talked about earlier, is sometimes it's out of your control. If you're gonna get hypercapnia, you didn't cause it yourself; it just happened to you.
For sure. No, I understand. I'm thinking of like, there's got to be other ways. And I'm just playing devil's advocate for the whole thing. Like, why send 11 people to risk their lives for?
I don't know. I mean, it's the same like Mount Everest today. You can't just send a helicopter to go get that person.
Helicopters can't go up there.
You can't. And we're in 2020, and the only way to get a body down is to have somebody go up and physically get it down. So this is in 2004, and if they would have had just a submarine to go and just grab it, like, I think that they would have done that, because they did have a submarine go and look for it. And if they would have found it, would that submarine have brought it up? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, if the submarine had... Yeah.
But anyway, so what happened to David Shaw? He had an underwater camera that was rolling, which recorded his last moments, which also allowed researchers to determine that he suffered from respiratory issues due to the high pressure. So kind of what
probably happened to the first guy.
That was like the biggest risk going into the dive, and that's exactly what happened. Before the dive, David Shaw had trained putting a body in the body bag underwater and bringing it back to the surface. So he trained for this. This was planned very meticulously to do. It wasn't just like, well, we're just gonna, go down and see what we can do and figure it out from there.
Yeah.
So he's training underwater of putting a body inside this body bag until he gets it down. He's told that the body is going to be negatively buoyant because visible parts were reduced to skeleton. So
yeah, okay. So his skin had kind of like raisined off.
So they could see skeletal parts of his.
It's denser.
It's in a bodysuit. So like what we can see there's a skeleton. So researchers saying he's going to be negatively buoyant, which means he's heavier. He's not going to like float around. So
he's going to be saturated.
Yeah. So they
they
used that information to have David practice putting like a similar size and weight body into the body bag until he like masters that. I just keep thinking about like if there's like a one-way air compressor that blows the water out. And the body floats, so it's just air in the bag, like a big old, and it just shoots all the water out of the bag, and it's sealed, and then I'm gonna make that. Make it. All right. Okay. Get us rich. That's a heavy compressor though to blow water at that depth out. I'm working it out. So he's at the bottom. He starts to put the body into the body bag like he's been trained to do. But inside the wetsuit, Dreyer's corpse had turned into a soap-like substance called adipocere, which floats. This is also called corpse wax, which is formed which is formed by the anaerobic bacterial hydrolysis of fat in tissue. So the body does exactly the opposite of what they thought and what they were practicing for. The body starts floating around, and so immediately he's like, oh, immediately shit. It's like, not going how it was supposed to, and this is the point where he should have let go and come back up, and abort the mission, come back up. You mentioned that the tank was stuck in sand or like stuck in the mud. Yeah. So once he dislodged it, did it float? No, it was the body that was floating. It wasn't the tank. The body. Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. Like if you dislodge take the thing off and just let the body go, done and done. It's floating. You still have to attach it to the line and get it up. Why? What do you mean why? Because they're trying to raise the body to the surface. So you still have to touch the body somehow to the line and get it to start ascending.
But you said it floated.
It wasn't like just starting to float and like, oh, there it goes, it's going to the surface.
That's what I'm picturing.
No. No, it was like when he like grabbed it, started kind of like raising up, like floating, and not just like ballooning up to the surface.
Okay,
is what I'm saying.
that's exactly what I pictured when you said it started floating. I pictured the body floating.
No, it just wasn't negatively buoyant.
Got
it was like regularly. So it starts floating. So now he's having a hard time putting it into the body bag. And while he's attempting to try and get it into the body bag, his like light becomes stuck in the lines of that. So they have like a line going all the way down to where the body is located. His light gets stuck into that. So now he's stuck in the line. He's trying to get this body. So he's at 889 feet and he's overworking himself for that type of
He should have aborted immediately.
He should have, yeah. But also, if you're in that situation where this has been planned for months and there's a team of 11 people and Dreyer's parents are at the surface waiting for their son's body to come up, like, that's a lot of reliance on you.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Not me. Not worth my life. I'd be like, all right, screw it. I'm out. Like, this isn't working. Which would have proved to be the proper or the right thing to do, is just abort.
Correct. But also, when you're overworking yourself at a depth and you start losing air to your brain, you start to lose that rationality. Yeah. And it becomes more panic.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And
that's why I'm saying he should have just aborted immediately as soon as it didn't go as planned.
Right. But he's also like caught in the line.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah, so footage reveals Shaw begins to breathe heavier and heavier until there's silence. So pretty much just
breathed.
Overworks himself. Yeah. So probably hypercapnia, the carbon dioxide one.
Yeah.
And then 3 days later, both of the bodies floated up near the surface close enough so that the dive team could retrieve them and their equipment. So yeah, kind of what you said, like the body just did end up floating to the surface because as he loosened it up, it like expanded the oxygen that was sitting in that tissue, and that like floated it up. And because Shaw was tangled in it too, he also raised to the surface. Yeah.
Well.
I know, wasn't it crazy?
He didn't. Well, in a way, he did his job.
In a way, he did his job. So maybe there's solace in that.
Yeah.
Even in his passing, he accomplished what he set out to do, knowing he very well could die doing it.
And he did. But it worked. But I knew that body would float, because bodies float no matter what. I've heard, and listened. Okay, yeah,
bodies float in the ocean, in the lake. Yeah, because the gases during decomposition just like blow you up, and
even if you're corpse wax, there's gases.
It would never have floated to the surface if he had not gone down there and like loosened it.
Because the body was stuck.
Yeah,
it was stuck in the equipment.
He got it out.
I mean, we've heard enough murder pods and murder shows that the body always floats.
Unless it doesn't.
Unless you've got some cement socks on.
Ooh.
But then your body will turn to corpse wax and then break away from the cement socks and float.
Yeah.
Corpse wax. Yeah. I'm surprised there's not a band called Corpse Wax.
We'll make it. But anyway, I first heard this story off of one of the first podcasts I ever started listening to was Radio Lab, and they did a whole like episode on this specific story, and then there was like a really good article linked to that. So if I can find it, I'll throw it into the show notes. Yeah. Really good story.
There's like another case. There's a few cases of this sort of thing happening.
There's plenty with cave diving and these people just getting themselves into bad situations.
Yeah, there's one where it was like the cave is basically just like a hole. It's kind of like an anomaly where it's just like a hole in a a regular like lake type thing or like inlet, and it just goes really deep randomly. And there's been a few people that have tried to rescue people who have drowned in there, and then they tried to like iron gate it off, like block the thing.
Is that
so
the one
no
with
one
the,
can go down there?
Is that the one with the picture of the Grim Reaper?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's just saying like,
don't
this
do it.
is going to lead to your death.
Yeah, because it's pretty small. You can't like. They're saying like in certain areas you can't turn around, you can't do anything. A tank and body barely
because
fits,
you have to.
like,
and you have to take your tank off
yeah,
to swim
no,
through.
Like, no way.
No.
No way I'm doing that. I'm not
like
nowhere near that.
I'm not. I would not say that I'm claustrophobic, but I would never shove myself into somewhere where I couldn't get out. And then on top of that, you're in water.
Yeah, in water. Like no. So like you know how that one guy died upside down in that one cave?
Nutty Putty Cave.
Yeah,
I was going to do a story on that one, but then I was like, what about cave diving?
Yeah, so like that guy, he's not even in water, and I still wouldn't do that.
Yeah,
like,
so actually I did start researching that one a little bit because I was gonna do that one. That was in Utah.
Yeah.
That cave had been sealed off because it was dangerous, but then reopened, and that's when a bunch of people started getting into trouble and having to be rescued. He went down into he was exploring with like a bunch of his friends. He went down into this part of the cave. So there's the Nutty Putty Cave goes into like little teeny tiny like those things where you can only go through a certain way and you have to go straight through. You can't turn around once you're like in certain passages because it's
makes
really
me
narrow.
Panic now, and I'm sitting.
Yeah. Also, he
room.
was a huge guy. I think he was like over 6 foot and just big. So crawling in and out of tight passages was really difficult. He was climbing through a passage which he thought was called a passage called the birth canal, where it goes really tight and then opens up into a cavern. But he was actually in a different passage. So that's the thing too, is like caves are really confusing, and if you don't know exactly where you're going, you're getting yourself into a bad situation. So he ended up getting stuck upside down, and when they were using the pulleys to get him out, they broke off the wall because it's called the Nutty Putty Cave for reasons, because the walls are like really soft clay, and so there's no way
I didn't know it was. Yeah,
there's no way they could anchor the pulleys into the wall to be able to get him out, and they pretty much just knew that they couldn't get him, and he just
they said that one thing they were talking about doing is just because the way his legs were and the way the cave was, like
he was pretty much upside down.
Yeah, it was odd angles, and so they were like, we'd have to shatter his legs to like maneuver his body out, because the way that he was laying, and the only way they could pull was his legs had to go the other way.
Yeah,
yikes. And like, oh god, oh my god.
But so he pretty much just all the blood kind of pooled into his brain.
It took him
died.
like 27 hours to die too.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
What a
But
nightmare.
after that, they sealed up the cave. You can't go in there. It's like concreted over.
They gave him like
he's still in there.
Yeah, they gave him like a bunch of drugs too, because they were like,
just
there's
something
nothing we
to like
can
help
do.
him. Yeah,
they like put it in his leg or something like that.
It's pretty terrible.
Yeah, they gave him like a ton of morphine and just said sorry.
There's another one. Oh yes, I think it is this one. 2 divers in a cave system in Norway. Maybe it wasn't this one, but there's this. I think it is. Yes. Okay. So this cave in Norway, it's just like a big. Here, let me show you a picture.
Yeah.
It's like a big strip. So you go in one side and you go through the whole thing, and then you come out the other side. But you can't like. I think this is one where you can't turn around and go back. Like once you start, you have to finish.
But that's all water.
This is all underwater.
Okay,
yeah, it's an underwater one.
So
but
you
when you go in, you have to keep going all the way to get
'Cause
out.
it's
You
so
can't just
skinny.
turn around. And 2 people died because one of them went in, something happened.
Both at like the deepest part too.
Yeah, something happened and he dies, and then the other one gets stuck behind him because he can't get past his body.
Oh.
Yeah.
What a bummer. Like, I'm fine. You're stuck.
Yeah,
Like,
so he dies too because
Was there
he
no-
can't get out.
I mean, obviously we didn't do a deep dive into this one, but I assume there was no way to push him through.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. Oh man.
And
what a
especially if you're
bummer.
already in this depth and you're overworking to...
And I assume he tried to he probably, even though he most likely couldn't, I assume he tried to turn around or do anything to like get out of there or like go backwards through it.
Yeah,
Man, I
that's
would
the
have tried
thing. How
absolutely
terrible.
everything. So that's another situation of that guy stuck in the cave who's just like, shit, I'm just going to sit here now.
There's nothing
There's
can do.
nothing I can do. Yeah, that's...
Yeah, but we could do so many
Yeah,
episodes on
that's-
cave diving and
We meant to do
caving
just
and
one. We're
accidents.
talking about like 3 or 4 now.
Because when I was researching this one, I like specifically knew a lot about the story because
Because of
I
that
like
podcast.
read that podcast and I
Yeah.
read a lot about it because it was crazy, and then because of that I started getting into like all these other little like crazy
There's
accidents. It's
tons
wild.
of them. It's crazy. Stay away from caves, honestly.
So we could
Forget
go
it.
forever. Yeah, don't go in caves.
Yeah, they're very dangerous. Even though
They're
they're so
scary.
cool, but you're going inside of the earth.
Stay out of the earth. Leave it alone.
Stay out of the earth. We were not supposed to be in there. We're supposed to be on top of it.
We're not even supposed to be on top of it.
We're
Just
ruining the top of
it.
it. Anyways, I assume that's it for this week.
That's it for this week.
All right.
Come back
Great
next week.
story. I mean, again, we could do a whole podcast on cave stories.
Oh yeah, we could just make this a cave diving podcast if anyone's interested.
No one's interested. It's just a podcast on cave diving.
Oh, I've never scuba dived, but let me tell you
Yeah, let
all
me-
about it.
Yeah, I'm going to give you all the knowledge on cave diving. Well, all right. Great story, and thank you for bringing that in. And
Thank you.
thank you. Round of applause.
Doctor.
That's it from us this week, and we'll see you next
We'll
week.
see you next week, and I hope you have a banger.
Woo! Bye!